I'll be doing my informative speech on the murder mystery of JonBenét Ramsey. I decided to do her case for this informative speech because it's very interesting to me and it's also unsolved. So I feel like it's important to always get that information out there so that everybody is informed of this case. JonBenét Ramsey was a 6-year-old beauty queen who was murdered on December 25th, 1996 in her own home in the basement. This was located in Boulder, Colorado. The cause of death was strangulation and trauma to the head. On December 25th, 1996, the Ramsey family went out to a friend's house for dinner, and they arrived home around 10 p.m. and put JonBenét to bed around that time. And between 10 p.m. and 5:52 a.m., there was not much information, but around 5:52 a.m., there was a 911 call from Patsy Ramsey, and she was frantic because she believed that her daughter was kidnapped because they couldn't find her. Before they found out that their daughter had been killed, there was a ransom note left, and it mentioned that they should not call the police and they were threatening them, and also mentioned they should give the kidnappers a certain amount of money and then they will bring their daughter back. Once police arrived, the investigation started, but they handled everything very poorly because everything was contaminated. For example, John, who is JonBenét's father, finds her body in the basement and picks her up from the crime scene. And everybody found this weird. Even though it's his daughter, you're not supposed to touch the crime scene. You're just supposed to leave everything alone. And they also had all their friends over because they believed their daughter was kidnapped. So all of them being in the house would contaminate any evidence that they had. From an article I found called 20-Year Murder Mystery, Who Killed JonBenét Ramsey, I found a quote that stated, "Since then, there has been more than 140 suspects investigated, including JonBenét's parents, Patsy and John Ramsey. More than 1,400 pieces of evidence reviewed, more than 50,000 pages of investigation documents generated, and still the case remains unsolved." Since the case was so off, a lot of people thought that Patsy and John, her parents, or her brother Burke had something to do with her murder. From the same article, they stated that on January 1st, 1997, the Ramseys appeared on CNN announcing that they did not kill their daughter and offered a $50,000 reward for information that would lead to the arrest and conviction of her killer. What was weird is they did not do an interview with police until a whole year after everything happened. They refused to do police interviews but would continue to do television interviews. Everybody had their opinions on this case, but a lot of people did think that it was either the parents or her brother, but a lot of people looked at her brother because he did an interview and the way he was acting was very off and very weird. From an article called The JonBenét Ramsey Case, What Does Her Brother Know?, I found a quote that stated, "He was kind of strange and showed little emotion," says Scott Robinson. And Scott Robinson is a defense attorney who has studied the case. It was weird the way he was acting in the interview because he did have a grin on his face at most times when talking about it, and he was just very uncomfortable the entire interview. There is a lot of evidence that Patsy, John, and Bert killed their own daughter because DNA evidence showed that there was traces of 1 female and 2 male DNA under JonBenét's fingernails. It was also said that the Ramseys hired a lawyer 2 hours after they found their daughter's body. Many people think that the Ramseys killed their daughter, and others think that a sexual predator broke into the Ramseys' house and killed JonBenét. Everybody has their own theories on this case, but one theory has to do with Burke, who was her older brother, and people claim that he might have accidentally killed his sister by hitting her on the head with something heavy out of anger, and that his parents wrote the note and tied her up in the basement to look like a kidnapping. In conclusion to this informative speech, October 1999, the grand jury had a hearing evidence in the case and it was finally dismissed with no recommendation for filing charges. In 2006, a former school teacher named John Mark Carr was arrested after confessing to the murder. However, Carr's DNA did not match samples found on JonBenét's body and he was released. This case happened about 24 years ago and it has never been solved. It's a very upsetting story because it's a 6-year-old girl who got murdered, but it's even worse because a lot of people suspect that her own parents and brother did this to her. Even though it's been so long since this case happened and the time makes it harder for people to solve this case, it's important to get this information out there because you never know what can happen. And out of the blue, we can receive more information so we can get justice for 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey and actually finally find out what happened to her because she didn't deserve this and no other child her age does.